time, so we're going to render down all of that. What I do want to do is trim off some of this fat. And again, we're going to render this down. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to take off too much. I'm going to take off a little bit of this right here. Because again, the meat is going to shrink up, and I don't want to be taking off too much of my fat that I want in there. So when you're confiting duck, what does confit mean?
Its own fat.
Cooked in its own fat.
And then you season with salt and cook in a nice
But the actual term confit, what is
Cooked
it French?
in-
cook in its own fat.
Yeah, well the actual word confit means to preserve. Yeah, and confiting when it comes to food is cooking at a low, slow temperature in fat. So you can confit potatoes in olive oil, you can confit chicken, you can confit anything basically. But the idea is what they used to do, and again, a lot of this comes from pre-refrigeration, is they would cook the duck in its own fat, then they would take the duck out of the fat, put it in a container, and then they would pour off. It's really important not to get any of the juices from your confit. There's going to be juices coming out. That we use for a jus or for our sauce. But you don't want any of that liquid getting in there. So then you pour the fat over it, give whatever vessel it is a good shake, get the air out of it. The fat solidifies and it basically preserves it. It will sit in there for years. Under refrigeration, it'll sit in there for years because it's anaerobic, there's no bacteria in there because you've cooked it, and you can't let things cool down, like put everything in there hot. So duck confit is a nice one because you do all of your cooking beforehand, right? And then you have it in your fridge to order, you take it out of the fat, it goes into the oven, crisp up the skin, and it goes out beautiful and tender. It's a good money maker because there's very little sort of attention needed at service time, at pickup time, because again, your cooking's already done. It's a braised dish, your cooking's done. So I'm not going to score the skin on this. Sometimes when I've cooked it, depending on the duck, I want to keep this on there, but a lot of this fat is going to render out. So when it's finished cooking, I might trim this up a little bit more then, but right now I want to keep most of the fat on there. So you can team up with somebody and, sandwich the breasts together and then the legs. I like to, you can just put them in an insert as well, but I like doing it kind of back to back because I find it, so you're going to be doing this with your spice blend from the recipe in the book.
The amount of salt you are using, is it like?
Well, I'm giving kind of a generous coating of salt. There's no kind of prescribed, whatever. You might in a restaurant say, okay, each one is like, 1 teaspoon of salt on either side. I like to rub that in, and again, the herb mix on there. For me?
It looks like that's
And then, again, this has already been vacuum packed once. I don't want to vacuum pack it again and keep pulling moisture out, but if it was fresh, you could vacuum seal this, really kind of sandwich it together, and it's essentially brining as it's cooking. Or as it's sitting, it's basically brining. So that's basically it, what you're going to do with your duck breast. So while you guys are getting set up, you can get your spice blend together. You can cross-hatch and salt your duck breast, the same with the leg. Make sure you put your names on things that are in the cooler so we know whose is whose. I'm going to start rendering down one of these, and then when it's done, I'll show you and we'll call you over and you can see exactly what it is we're looking for with that nice crispy skin. I'm going to leave this for a little while to render some of it out. Duck is way less of a hazardous food than chicken is with salmonella. Salmonella doesn't survive on duck like it does on chicken. Restaurants that I've worked at, we keep our meats, except for the ones we use for well done, we keep our meats at room temperature for service time. With whole cuts of meat, if there is bacteria, it's on the outside, and you're going to be searing the outside of that, getting nice caramelization, so you're killing anything. I've done that for 20 years and nobody has ever got sick from it. The exception is chicken. We don't do that with chicken by law, but even salmonella on chicken is unless it's been handled really badly, is fairly rare these days. Like trichinosis on pork doesn't even exist anymore. We've basically eradicated that altogether. So when you're cooking, instead of going from fridge temperature from 3 degrees Celsius to, you know, whatever your end temperature is, 150, you're going from 20, like room temperature, 20, 22 degrees to 150. So your cooking time is less and the meat cooks more evenly because it's already sort of warm throughout, so it cooks a little bit more evenly. But that depends on your chef, it depends on, you know, a lot of places it's just everything's cooked right out of the fridge and into the pan. But service time, especially the larger steaks, we'll have them sitting at room temperature on the station, so you're cooking them warmer. And that way, when you cook a rare or a blue rare, has anyone heard of Chicago style steak? Chicago is basically you char the outside black, and it's usually done on an open flame, right over your burner on an open flame. You blacken one side, you blacken the other side, and it's raw, it's blue rare on the inside. For rare steaks too, if you're cooking it from fridge, it's gonna be fridge cold in the middle, which I don't think is very nice. So again, if you're cooking those from room temperature, especially your rare steaks, it's already room temperature inside, which is a little more palatable than, you know, when it's like 3, 4, or 5 degrees inside when you're eating a rare steak. And that's a good test. Like, order a rare steak in a restaurant. It's a good test of a chef's skill, is getting a nice rare steak that's not cold in the middle, because often it is cold. Louis Steakhouse here, they do nice steaks, but every time I've been there, I've never paid for a meal there myself. It's always been work meetings and things like that. Every steak I've ever had there, I usually get it medium rare. I did order rare, stone cold on the inside. Like, it feels like they cook the steak, they put it somewhere to rest, then half an hour later, they just take that same steak and put it on the plate. That's why sous vide is so good for steaks. I have a friend in Calgary, he runs 3 casinos, and he's got about 15 of these banks there, and he's got like the chicken in one, the rare steaks, medium rare, medium, the well done steaks in another one, and it makes your operation really quick. Like, it's a pickup. Like, when the entremets has a starch and a veg ready to go, it's like pick up, you know, steak comes out, nice hot sear on the grill, perfect temperature inside, because you can't overcook with sous vide, because if you're cooking it to 135, it's at 135 all the way through, so your rare steak is really nice and warm. And when he started doing sous vide, it took him a while to convince the owners to spend, because they spent like, I think, $15,000 or $20,000 on for each restaurant for this sous vide setup. But no wastage on steaks, because the dishwasher could cook a steak. It's like, all you gotta do is take it out of the bag and sear it, and it goes on the plate, right? So it's a really good way to save money. And then the next day, what he does is, the steaks that were in the rare, they put them on ice, and the next day they go into the medium rare, and the medium rares go to the medium, and the mediums go to the well done. The well done goes to staff meal, because well done isn't very good the next day. It'll just get really, really tough. But yeah, they save a lot of money with that. He brines everything. They have a combi oven. So combi oven, you're doing large roast, you're wasting about 10 to 15% less than if you're doing it in a dry heat oven. And they're doing about 47 prime ribs per restaurant per night. 47 whole prime ribs, huge casinos in Calgary. So he ends up saving a lot of money overall. Even though it was a big investment up front, he figures within the first year they paid off all the equipment that they bought for that. A lot of places, a lot of people are still kind of afraid of sous vide, but really,
So what is this sous vide?
Sous vide means under, like sous chef. Sous means under, vide is vacuum, under vacuum. So you vacuum pack whatever it is. So this unit right here, can I get a tall guy to reach that, please? Yeah. No, beside it, yeah, the whole thing.
There is something behind inside.
Yeah, that's the emerging circulator.
This is sous vide.
Well, yeah, this is the setup to cook sous vide. So what we do with this, This is a circulator, so it heats the water to whatever temperature you set it at, and it just keeps it circulating. So you have your vacuum packed steaks, chicken, whatever it is, and sous vide eggs. We're going to do that next week, sous vide some eggs in here, in the shell. And it basically just keeps this, if you dial it in at like 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and it just keeps it at that temperature. So whatever you have in there, depending on how big it is, will reach that temperature, and it stays at that perfect, rare or medium rare, wherever you've got it set. You get an order, you take it out, you open the bag, pat it dry, season, grill, or pan fry, whatever it is. And the nice thing is like with steaks, you can have a look at the charts over in the other kitchen what the doneness is. It's going to be gray, then your doneness, your medium rare, whatever, and then gray on the bottom. With sous vide, because it's cooked at that temperature, the exact temperature you want it at, you get beautiful, whatever it is, medium or medium rare color right throughout, and then you're just giving it a quick sear, so it's just a very slight part of pink on there. Again, not all customers like sous vide steaks. Some like that gray, pink, gray. I actually like that on a barbecue, but the reverse sear, which Chef Thomas is a huge fan of, and I've kind of come around to for bigger steaks, which is putting your steak in the oven at a low temperature. It's almost like a dry sous vide. You're doing it at a very low temperature, taking your temperature of it, and then when you reach your set point temperature, you take it out of the oven and then give it a quick sear, and you get much more even doneness throughout. But for example, Chef Ron, who does a daytime program, I've given him sous vide steak, and he's like, no, I like sort of almost like you've got a little bit of well done, and you've got medium rare and a little bit of well done, and it is nice. It's kind of a textural difference, but that's what's great about this setup. It can save you a lot of money without wasting, overcooking steaks, having steaks sent back, that kind of thing. So any questions on that? No? Okay. So you can head back, you can get your duck breast,